Welcome back, everyone. Let's dive right into the final chapter of our Explainer series. Now, up to this point, we've spent a lot of time studying charts, digging into wallets, and analyzing market psychology based on our source material. But today we're looking at a comprehensive blueprint for what the text actually describes as the end of the old matrix of infinite debt. According to the authors, while a lot of us have been super focused on our own personal digital security, there is a massive global shift happening right under our noses. The argument here is that the traditional financial system is quietly preparing to shut its doors, and a completely new monetary world order is literally being coded in real time. So the source material presents a pretty stark reality. It emphasizes that while everyday people are just, going about their normal lives, the global geopolitical chessboard is making a highly aggressive move. The text warns of a specific macroeconomic event occurring behind closed doors, one that threatens to permanently freeze traditional paper wealth. If this analysis holds true, we are looking directly into a future where the fundamental roles of money and value undergo a massive structural reset. And if this new monetary order is indeed being built right now, the material suggests we really have to rethink how we protect our legacy. It's not just retail investors or tech companies making moves anymore. Sovereign nations are quietly scooping up digital property behind the scenes. The authors argue that the race to control the global ledger has absolutely already begun, and this signals a monumental shift in how global wealth is going to be stored and validated moving forward. Okay, moving into Section 1, the rise of surveillance money versus sovereign digital assets. To really grasp where the text says we're heading, we have to talk about central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, because decentralized tech has grown so much, it can't exactly be put back in the box, right? So the source defines CBDCs as a centralized attempt to replicate those open source networks, but under strict, unyielding government control. Unlike the private digital assets we've explored previously, our research outlines CBDCs as programmable surveillance money, which completely removes that permissionless nature of decentralized networks we've come to know. Let's look a bit closer at how these CBDCs are actually engineered to function. The material highlights that these tokens give issuers the power to track every single microtransaction you make. Just imagine a system that could potentially set expiration dates on your savings, literally forcing you to spend money in the economy, or even restrict what you're allowed to buy based on compliance metrics. And because they're still fiat currency at their core, they remain powered by infinite inflation. The text frames this as a system built entirely around absolute centralized visibility and authority. But there is an alternative outlined in our research. Think of it as a sort of digital life raft. As the debt of global empires continues to breach historical limits, the authors point out that smart money is quietly exiting the fiat system and moving into hard, sovereign digital property. This decentralized escape hatch, it isn't just a theory anymore. It is an active, ongoing migration of capital. People and institutions are actively seeking a global neutral sanctuary that operates completely outside the boundaries of this new programmable control system. So what we're really looking at here is the ultimate clash of two very different digital futures. On one side, you've got centralized CBDCs, which are characterized by surveillance, infinite inflation, expiring funds, and permissioned access. And on the flip side, you have decentralized assets. The text define these as unhackable, strictly limited in supply, immutable, and carrying the absolute guarantee of individual ownership. It's an incredibly stark contrast between a top-down control mechanism and a bottom-up permissionless network. The overarching argument here is huge. It states that we are witnessing the separation of state and money for the very first time in human history. The source material argues that anyone who remains trapped in that traditional paper currency mindset risks being totally swept away by this economic tsunami, while decentralized networks offer a neutral global sanctuary. The text frames this as way more than just a software upgrade to a payment app. It's a historical paradigm shift where money production is entirely decoupled from state control. Let's jump into Section 2, building your generational wealth shield. Because let's face it, just knowing about this shift is only half the battle. According to our research, true wealth in the modern era simply isn't measured in easily devalued paper currency anymore. It's measured in scarce, high-utility digital property. The ultimate goal outlined by the authors is to acquire assets that are fundamentally unconfiscatable by central authorities. It's all about moving away from assets that a government can just inflate away at the click of a button and shifting into property that retains mathematical scarcity totally regardless of macroeconomic policy. So how do you actually do that? Well, the source material lays out a very specific 4-step blueprint to build this financial shield. Step 1 is to dollar cost average. That basically means consistently buying small amounts of hard assets over time to smooth out the volatility, rather than just dumping in one huge lump sum. Step 2, utilize secure cold storage protocols. This means keeping your digital assets entirely offline on a physical device, so you truly hold your own keys and stay completely safe from hackers. Step 3 is understanding the psychological warfare of market whales, so you don't get tricked into panic selling during market dips. And finally, Step 4, carefully using automated leverage systems to your advantage. This is the text mechanical, step-by-step process for securing your position. By actually following that blueprint, the text proposes a pretty powerful outcome, totally escaping the fear of inflation, corporate layoffs, or bank failures. And why is that? Because in this framework, the financial future doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the most aggressive gambler. It belongs to the disciplined and the patient who spot this shift early. The authors strongly argue that when you hold the keys to scarce digital property, you achieve ultimate digital sovereignty and become entirely self-reliant. All right, bringing us to section 3, the final sign-off and ultimate financial freedom. As we wrap up this explainer, making that transition from a curious observer to an empowered participant really comes down to one final takeaway from the source. Quote, never stop learning, never let emotion dictate your strategy, and always guard your keys. The authors are very clear in warning that this landscape is going to continue to evolve, and the markets will endlessly test your psychology. Staying completely rational, continuing your financial education, and fiercely protecting your digital keys are framed as the absolute core pillars of maintaining this newfound sovereignty. So, the frameworks have been delivered. We've mapped out what the sources call the ultimate path to financial independence. But as we know, knowledge without action is really just trivia. As we close out this explainer of the source material, the final question is entirely up to you. In a world that's rapidly moving toward programmable, centralized control, will you actually take the steps to build your shield and secure your legacy, or will you remain tied to the old matrix? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the data. Keep questioning everything, and I'll see you next time.